I don't think it's too much of an exaggeration to call both Avatar: The Last Airbender and Hunter x Hunter some of the best storytelling ever put to animation, with naturally great animation to complement said stories. If you disagree with that opinion, that's fine, go ahead, but I highly recommend rewatching both of them first and writing a 5,000-word essay articulating why you disagree. Submissions can be sent via email or to the address you're seeing on screen now. Best of luck swaying me. But for as high a regard as I have for both of these series, there isn't a ton they have in common. Sure, Kurapika basically becomes the closest thing Hunter x Hunter has to the Avatar when his eyes turn red and he becomes proficient in all forms of Nen.
Long ago,
the Phantom Troop
lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed
when Kurapika
attacked.
Glossing over that though, the respective plot structures, developments, messages, and cast of characters are all handled differently between the two works. All that's to say, the connection I'm talking about in the title isn't some narrative thread I'm planning to tug on. So with that squared away, the only other thing to look at is the production. And you might be rightfully skeptical given, Japanese-funded property based on existing manga versus American-funded original property. Geez, I've been doing a lot of these, huh? But trust me, this isn't some connection based purely on observation or opinion. And in order to fully explain what it is, I need to delve a little into the specifics of anime production. Even among the most dedicated fans, I would say the part of the process that often gets talked about the least is outsourcing work. And hand in hand with that is talk about the studios that do this work. Go ahead and take a look at the credits of the next show you watch, and there's a decent chance you might find some familiar names. Studio Ufotable, White Fox, and even Trigger, but their name normally shows up in kanji. And that's just for one episode of SAO Alternative. Because anime scheduling is far from ideal and often just bad, so sometimes studios need to ask for a little help in some aspect of a production. A key cut here or there, maybe just some finish animation, that's often why you'll see names you recognize floating around. I think it is crucial to understand though that just because outsourcing is present in some form, does not mean a project is doomed or has egregious scheduling by any means. One of the more recent examples of great scheduling, Mob Psycho, saw the aforementioned Studio Trigger help out on some in-between animation. But before I get too off topic, I'll just say that I'm linking down below, What Else?, a Sakuga blog article that goes way more in depth on this subject. So back to the matter at hand, the connection I've been referencing is one of these studios often used for outsourcing. The studio in question, DR Movie. Doctor Movie? I don't know, studio names are weird. There's one literally called Big Owl, but I'm just gonna go with DR since both of the letters are capitalized and there's no period. Anywho, the studio is actually based out of Seoul, South Korea, but have worked on a number of projects overseas. Specifically when it comes to Japan, the company has had a very close relationship with Studio Madhouse for almost 20 years now. As a result, they've worked on a number of Madhouse productions, helping out on many fronts with series like the original Cardcaptor Sakura, Boogie Pop Phantom, Boogie Pop and Others, Chihaya Furu, Death Note, Death Parade, Hunter x Hunter, among many, many others. And they don't only work with Studio Madhouse. DR Movie has helped out on a lot of productions here and there, including shows as recent as Kaguya-sama and Zombieland Saga. And as a last little fun fact, they are actually the only Korean studio to ever be contracted to work with Studio Ghibli. So theoretically, the title of this video could have been the connection between Cardcaptor Sakura and Zombieland Saga, Princess Mononoke and Avatar, Pokemon 2000 and Hunter x Hunter, or between any number of shows that are only a couple of degrees of separation apart, thanks to this web of relationships facilitated by DR Movie. But I chose Hunter x Hunter in part because due to their close ties with Madhouse, they did more than just help out a little bit here and there on a couple of episodes, like you see with many of the aforementioned non-Madhouse productions. The studio helped out in no small part with the key animation, in-between animation, and coloring/finish animation for a dozen episodes of Hunter x Hunter. And I bring this up because I think it's important to understand in what capacity they contributed before I mention their role in Avatar. While 12 episodes may not sound like a lot when compared to the series' total of 148, remember that is still for a lot of anime an entire season's worth. And actually, the more I'm looking into this, the more it seems like their role in the production might be a lot bigger than the source I'm pulling from, Anime News Network, indicates. Which is not on them, it seems like these credits and contributions are crowdsourced, But on top of these 12 listed, just by randomly clicking earlier episodes, I found DR Movie in the credits of many episodes where they helped that are in no way listed by this ANN database. Some are included under this anime production cooperation umbrella, but even then that's really broad, especially when normally they show up in only 2 or 3 capacities depending on the episode. Why those themselves are not individually listed out here, I don't know. I thought that maybe the 12 listed were the ones where they helped out the most, but looking at the staff listed, I don't think that's true. In some of those dozen, only the name DR Movie is listed with no staff attached, so I assume contributions were minimal at best. Or take an episode like 115 that's listed with 10 DR Movie animators having helped out with in-between animation. That's all well and good, but episode 1, which was listed nowhere on ANN, had 20 helping. Best I can tell is the information on in-between and finish animation is inaccurate but intertwined. I.e., I don't know how many episodes they assisted with, but if DR Movie helped out on one of those aspects, they helped out with the other through everything I've seen. And as I'm looking through here, it appears the key animation sources are correct, which might be why then they decided to stack in-between and finish animation under just those 12 as the more animation-heavy ones, but even if that's true, it just feels lazy. And I'm still not 100% sure on this because there are episodes where Korean names show up as credits for key animation, and while I was able to trace several of those back to DR Movie, the lack of studio credit makes me think they might have just been independently contracted by Madhouse. I don't really have the tools at my disposal to find out. So, benefit of the doubt on their involvement in just these 12 in particular when it comes to key animation. But similarly, it's hard to know exactly what cuts the staff from DR Movie were responsible for, as no episode saw them as the only personnel working on key animation. What I do know is whatever capacity they were involved with during these dozen, it was always proportional to the overall work. It wasn't as if they were less involved for the more animation-heavy episodes, or vice versa for the less animation-heavy ones. Every instance I could find had their staff making up between 20 to 30% of the total key animators. Likewise, the bulk of these episodes came during the Chimera Ant arc, which I think most fans would agree was a high point for the series, in many aspects, but for our purposes, both stylistically and animation-wise. Specifically for key animation during this arc, they helped out on episodes 91, 98, 101, 105, 107, 109, 114, 115, 122, and 129. So since I can't identify with a degree of certainty which cuts were done by DR Movie staff, I'm just gonna list some of the potential ones. Gon fighting this snake man. Meruem's graphic birth scene. Meruem decapitating this Chimera Ant. Meruem decapitating that Chimera Ant. Meruem trying to decapitate Pito. Meruem ripping off his own arm. Most of the fight between Leol and Morel. Killua stretching and proving that he has like 0.5% body fat. Zeno's dragon head technique. Shoot's initial fight with Yuppie. This beautiful sequence with Shoot and some butterflies, that the staff might have also colored. And the beginning of Netero's fight with Meruem, among many others not included here. So with all that taken into account, keeping in mind all of the additional work on this series they've done, I think it's clear that the animators at DR Movie are more than capable. And it shouldn't be surprising then, given the studio's reputation and resume, that they've also helped out on a decent chunk of American shows, including, of course, Avatar: The Last Airbender. But unlike their typical assistants in providing key, in-between, and finish animation, here they split the workload with another studio, JM Animation, tackling basically all of the animation for half the episodes of Avatar Season 1 and 2. Season 3 they didn't help with directly, JM Animation continued on, but DR Movie's spin-off studio, Moi Animation, took the reins. So in a way, DR Movie was still involved. Also, it doesn't appear there was any hard and fast rule for which studio worked on which episode. That is to say, it doesn't seem like either JM Animation or DR Movie were handed the action-heavy or action-light episodes based on the level of perceived skill. Which makes sense because considering the quality they wanted for this series, it was most efficient and financially sound to split the work evenly, rather than based on discrepancy in talent if there was any to begin with. Though JM Animation did luck out and get some fan-favorite episodes like The Storm, Zuko Alone, and The Cave of Two Lovers. Okay, that last one isn't a fan favorite, but it is for me because, damn it, I love the traveling music troupe and their comedy.
Is this real or a legend?
Oh, it's a real legend. Secret tunnel, secret secret tunnel.
Point being with that though, is the writing quality and overall story of Avatar make those fan favorites rather than any one piece of incredible animation. And it's also worth mentioning that a lot of the animation was no doubt following Western direction and storyboards. It's not as if the studios had free reign. Not to downplay the animators or their work though, because as far as I can tell they did a great job bringing those storyboards to life. But going back to my earlier point of discussion, DR Movie also handled some great episodes like Bitter Work, The Drill, and The Tales of Ba Sing Se. Also, they animated The Guru, the episode where Toph learns to metalbend for the first time, which is one of my favorite moments in the entire series. All that being said though, this connection, as cool as it was to look into and research, could still be mostly peripheral. Glancing at the names for key animators between series, I didn't see any overlap. Which isn't all that surprising considering Hunter x Hunter started production long after the ink was dry on Avatar's last keyframe. Working conditions the world over for the animation industry seem less than ideal, to put it lightly, so it wouldn't really shock me if DR Movie saw similar high turnover rates for their staff, resulting in almost no one from Avatar still being with the company when they started work on Hunter x Hunter, or maybe it was just scheduling. They've worked on a lot of stuff, so maybe some of the animators from Avatar were busy with other projects. My resources on this side of the world are limited to say the least, so if you have any helpful ones I should know about, feel free to let me know. And with that, we've reached the end. While this connection may not be as strong as I initially thought, I do think there are some important takeaways. One is just understanding outsourcing and how tied to the shows we love it is, but also how much more connected the industry is than what we just see on the surface. But whether you like outsourcing as a concept, or absolutely despise it and see it as a symptom of a larger problem, in my view, more knowledge and education on the subject is never a bad thing. Once again, article down below. I'd also encourage you to stick around after any particular episode of something, find out who helped on it, in and outside the main studio, and go from there. Find your own web of connections between series and see how deep it runs. Anime literacy is something I think everyone in this growing and international community could benefit from, and so I'm gonna do my best to try and further it if I can. But those are just my thoughts, and as always, I love to hear what you have to say. Is there any particular rabbit hole you've gone down with a certain series where you found a connection you really weren't expecting? I'd ask what your opinions on Hunter x Hunter and Avatar are, but if you've watched them, I can kinda guess what they're gonna be. Still, feel free to if you like. Any other thoughts are welcome down below. Thank you so much for watching though, and as always, an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, James Morton, Marbled Ranger, Spudge, Beorn, and everyone else whose support helps make videos like these possible. Links to that Patreon if you'd like to join them, my shirts, and everything else are either down below or on the screen right now. Be sure to leave a like and click that bell icon to keep up to date, or just follow me on Twitter. Stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.